I'm Carol Owens, and this is Stockbridge Updates. You know, there's something very interesting in this issue. We have a proposed development in Stockbridge that is the biggest development ever proposed in the history of Stockbridge. If completed as proposed, it will be the biggest. It's going to make quite an impact. And you have to go for a special permit. And when the developer, it's 35 to 37, Interlaken Realty Trust, and Patrick Sheehan is the trustee. And they are the ones applying for a special permit. And during that process, if a proposed project is very large or complex, or it is supposed it will have a very big impact on the town, then you can have a peer review. So I'm just going to tell you a quick story about the peer review. Probably 40 years ago, I just finished writing Berkshire Cottages, and for that reason, I got a call from a wonderful woman who would become my best friend, and her name was Mary Flynn. And she called and said, we are trying to write a cottage-era bylaw to protect the big, beautiful houses that were built in Stockbridge during the Gilded Age. And Jeff Parsons, another perfectly wonderful man, was also involved. She said, we'd like you to be involved and help us write it. And I have to tell you, it was a perfectly fabulous bylaw, which was absolutely never used, because the minute we voted on it and approved it, it was challenged in court by the Marians of the Immaculate Conception up on the hill in Stockbridge, and it was thrown away. But if you live long enough, good things happen. So now, 40 years later, the peer review of a cottage-era estate, 37 Interlaken, formerly the DeSisto School. And the peer reviewer's first sentence was, we believe it is through the lens of preservation that this proposal should be evaluated. And I was so thrilled. We meant to preserve everything. We got shot down. But here we are 40 years later, and the peer reviewers want us to preserve. So I'm very, very pleased about that. And you can read all about the peer review. The next public hearing will be April 17th, if you want to attend that. And you can trace this thing and see what's happening with this 314-acre development. Now, today is just filled with good things because I love my guest. I love this woman. Her name is Kate Maguire, and we have been lucky enough to have her as part of our community for 30 years through her ever-expanding role to finally CEO of the Berkshire Theater, spelled R-E, not E-R, group. Kate Maguire.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so happy to see you.
Interesting. Also interesting, the cottage era.
Well, you know what I think is interesting?
Mm-hmm.
I think what's interesting is your journey to Stockbridge, really, because I know a little bit about the story.
You do.
And how you came here, and a few of the things that happened, because you got advice from one of the doyens of Stockbridge, Jane Fitzpatrick.
Oh my gosh, my mentor.
Your mentor. It's like Mary Flynn was mine.
Yes, exactly.
And aren't we both lucky?
Oh, I learned so much from that woman.
All right, so tell us. You came to Stockbridge as managing director.
Yes.
Yeah.
I came to Stockbridge as managing director in 1995, 30 years ago.
Wow.
And it all happened because of wonderful Fred Rutberg, actually. I was visiting the Red Lion Inn. I had lived in Stockbridge for a while before that. I moved away for just a couple of years to manage a theater in Springfield, Massachusetts. and was visiting the Red Lion Inn. And Fred said, "Do you ever think about coming back?" At that time, I had twins who were, oh gosh, I don't know, 12 years old. And a lot of their life had been spent in Stockbridge. And I remember going home after seeing Fred, and I said, "Do we ever think about going back to Stockbridge?" And the two of them were like, "Please, Mama, please, let's go back to Stockbridge." And so I interviewed for the job at Berkshire Theatre Festival then.
Mm-hmm.
And we still call the Stockbridge campus Berkshire Theatre Festival.
Right. Good. I'm glad.
Yes. And so my relationship goes back very far and long with Fred Ruthberg and with you, who I believe I met when I worked many moons ago at Shakespeare and Company.
I do. I think so.
Yeah.
Because we've known each other
for longer than 30 years.
Yeah. A long time.
So when I first came, I was at Shakespeare and Company and then left for a couple of years and moved to Springfield and then came back 30 years ago to run Berkshire Theatre Festival, which I am ever grateful for and to.
Right when you came, was Jane president of the board at that moment?
Jane was president of the board. Jane was president of the board for a good another, I would say 7 or 8 years.
And as I recall, she advised on everything, including what you wore. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I remember being on Elm Street one day. It was a Sunday. It was a Sunday. And I ran into what we used to call the Elm Street Market.
Sure.
And Mr. Shanahan was
Jimmy
there.
Shanahan
was there. And I was grabbing my newspapers. And Jane was sitting at Elm Street Market having a coffee and called me over very quietly and said, "We don't go out in sweatpants." Because I had been running before that, and I thought, I'll just run in here. And so no one has ever seen me in Stockbridge again in sweatpants or a sweatshirt, unless it says Berkshire Theatre Festival on it.
I know, and Mary Flynn said, we don't. But the one that was worse is if she would say, "One doesn't."
Oh, because, one doesn't.
Oh, no, "One doesn't" was way worse than we don't.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, I also remember Jane Fitzpatrick saying to me one day, "Always color your hair." Mm-hmm. So you notice I have this dark hair, which is really white. And I remember telling my husband, Jane told me to always color my hair. And my husband, Eric, said, "Have you ever looked at the color of Jane's hair?" Which was the most beautiful white. But, I did what Jane Fitzpatrick told me to do, and actually it held me in good stead all those years. And I would sit in the Red Lion Inn, and she would talk about the length of the curtains or how this wait staff should be speaking to the guests. Or how the phone should be answered. Or I would call her from the theater and say, "This is happening today. What is appropriate? What is an appropriate response?" And her answer was always right, and her words ring in my ears to this day. And I am constantly talking to our staff about, this is what Jane said, and perhaps we should do it that way, because it usually worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one statement on politics, and we're going to move right back to theater. There was a kind of meeting with heads of Democratic town committees the other day. Quite pleasant. Nobody was too depressed. And they asked me what I thought was sort of missing, a key element that was missing today. And I said, manners.
Yes.
It's so elementary.
Graciousness.
Yes.
Kindness. Yeah.
And that's all one package. Mm-hmm. And where did we lose that? Because then we begin to accept more and more unpleasantness.
It's true. Even when I'm setting the table and my family is coming over on a Sunday, my extended family. And my 6-year-old granddaughter is saying to me, I don't understand, why do we have to put the napkin over there?
Yeah.
And my response is, you could set the table quite artistically, but I'm going to teach you the way that I was taught, and we'll all sit down at the table in a civilized way, Olympia. And those days have passed, haven't they?
I know, but we need them back. Because, they talk about whether politicians have guardrails or guidelines. Gee whiz, first we have to have those.
We do. And it's not just about being able to set the table appropriately. It's remembering that there's a human being standing in front of you.
Yeah. And my papa always said, Carol, well, I'm a writer. Mm-hmm. And when I first began, he said, Carol, you can break any rule of, strunk and white.
Yeah.
Provided you're doing it.
Yes.
And what worries me about generations after ours is they don't know they're doing it. So you're setting the table properly and saying, this is the way it is properly done. And there actually are intellectual reasons why things are on your left and things are on your right and where you put the salt and so forth. And you've got to know the rules before you can break them.
That's exactly right. I used to drive around in the backseat of my father's cruiser. He was a policeman.
Mm-hmm.
And I would watch him talking to people that were about to do something wrong, kids in the neighborhood, and explaining to them why, what the repercussion of their behavior would be.
Consequences.
Yes. Putting them in the back seat with me and taking them home to their parents. I mean, I'm sure I wasn't supposed to be there. This was a long time ago. But the measure of graciousness that he had and the measure of intelligence, actually, that went hand in hand with that. When my father passed away, there were lines around the block.
Oh, my goodness.
Of all these young people that would come in and say to us, your father kept me out of trouble. And I'm okay now. I've been okay for a long time. It was just the way that he treated people was gracious. And I've always been fond of the police because of that, and had great respect. But the world has come to a different place now.
Yeah. We had the cookie lady, and we got off the school bus on the corner, and we were all neighbors between two, they call those things T's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so there are two T's, and then there was our block, and we all lived, and to this day, I can name every child I played with, and we'd get off the bus, and we would walk, and we had to walk by the cookie lady's house, and she would sit every day on the porch when we were coming home from the school bus with a plate of cookies. Oh. That smelled like heaven, and said, don't you come up on this porch and get a cookie if you've done anything wrong today. Now you think about it.
Yep.
And then we'd go up and we'd get our cookies. And, are your hands clean? Have you been nice? Where's your pocket handkerchief?
Right.
She had a list. And we go back down, and she'd call after us. If I see you doing anything wrong, I call your mother.
Yes, I remember those words.
If I see you doing anything.
Yes, I remember those words.
But it was wasn't it wonderful somehow?
Well, there were rules, and we knew what they were. And it didn't feel chaotic. It felt like we all marched to the same.
Yes, it felt like it held us in place. I mean, I'm a psychologist, and I was in practice for 30 years, and I think I learned that too much freedom only causes insecurity.
Oh, interesting.
And knowing the rules and knowing the boundaries is actually how you build strong egos.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
It really is. So now, tell me what's on your theater program.
Oh, well.
Are you going to teach us and educate us?
I will tell you what's on the theater program. Speaking of rules and boundaries, running a theater in the summertime in the Berkshires is like you get on the train and you hope it stays on the track the entire summer. Talk about like staying within the boundaries.
I have to tell you, I must pay you a compliment. You come before any show. Kate comes on and says, "Please, I'm begging you, turn off your cell phones," and welcomes you to the theater and so forth. You are so relaxed. Oh. Your diction is so
thank
perfect.
You. Thank you very much.
The tone in your voice.
Thank you very much.
The whole thing is
It is, though, when you were talking about the woman with the cookies, I often feel like I should have a tray of cookies and say, would anyone like any cookies before the show starts? And oftentimes it's a recorded voice, so I hope the same measurement.
Well, when the appropriate occasion occurs, you and I will act out the cookie lady.
Lovely.
For everyone's benefit.
Thank you very much. We'll do it outside the unicorn one day.
Good.
Right. We're actually getting started pretty soon. We go into rehearsals on May 5th.
Wow.
Which is soon.
Wow.
For The Elephant Man, that great play.
Oh, golly. Yeah.
Last fall, we did a play called The Weir with a wonderful group of actors.
I loved it.
I loved it. It's a great piece and an actor's piece. And at one of the receptions, I was talking to the actors, and one of them, we were going through a list of what the great plays are, what actors love to perform in. And one of them said, The Elephant Man. I was like, oh, The Elephant Man.
Yeah. And
as the year went on, so this conversation was in October, before the election. And no matter how you feel about the way the election turned out, one must admit that the world has gotten chaotic. And as we spoke about it, there are measures of inappropriate behavior like I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And so the person at the center of The Elephant Man is one of the kindest,
which is the point,
characters ever written.
Right.
Pure kindness and empathy and graciousness towards a world that has been absolutely unkind
to him. Yeah.
And so I gravitated to that play over and over again and thought, I just want to be in that world where we are all reminded of what pure kindness can be and can look like. So we will tackle The Elephant Man first.
Good.
And this is a season, sometimes I get to the end of the season, Carol, and I realize how it all tied together. But this season I look at now and I think, oh, it really is a season to remind us all that there's not much difference between the person sitting next to us, actually. What do we all care about? The same things, I think. And we all love. So we start with The Elephant Man. And then Ariel Stachel, who is an extraordinary actor who won a Tony Award for The Band's Visit in New York City, created a piece called Out of Character. Wow. And we did a workshop of it last year as part of the Jewish Play Festival that we did, all new plays. And Ariel was on stage at the Colonial. It was one of the first times that he'd really read this piece. And when you see the entire audience moving towards
oh my gosh,
the person, there's something going on. Mm-hmm. And the play itself is about Ariel Stachel growing up. His father was a Yemeni Jew. His mother was Ashkenazi. They divorced. And he wasn't sure who he was for a long time. When he was in high school, because he has very dark skin, like his father, people thought he was African American. And for a long time, he walked around saying, I am African American. And then he got to college and he became something else. And he kept changing himself, as actors are sometimes wont to do. Mostly it should happen on the stage. But with Ariel, it was happening in real life. And then he finally I think it was probably when he got into the band's visit and won that Tony Award and realized, no, 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 no. I am my father's son. I am my mother's son. And I'm proud of who I am, and embraced who he was. And he tells this remarkable story about identity at a time when we are questioning people's identities and who they are. And I, as an audience member, I think we all recognize, oh, that's me. No, 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 that's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. I am all of these things. And the story is told with great humor. He's very funny and real warmth. So that's second up at the Unicorn, this great actor, Ariel Stachel. And then Matt Penn, who you know.
Yeah.
Who is Arthur Penn's son.
Right.
Not his only claim to fame, but a good one. Arthur Penn ran Berkshire Theater.
Sure.
And a woman named Elaine May was at Berkshire Theater from time to time. The great Elaine
May, right.
And her friend, Renee Taylor, who some people know as having written Love is a Many Splendored Thing, was married to Joe Bologna. More recently was the mother on The Nanny for 100 years. Renee wrote a piece about her life with Joe Bologna.
Oh, gosh.
And they had an extraordinary marriage that no one would have predicted. They were from completely different backgrounds, completely different people, amazingly in love. And Joe, unfortunately, got cancer, received a cancer diagnosis. And Renee said, what am I going to do without you? Because they had done everything together.
Yeah.
What am I going to do without you?
Yeah.
And he said, you're going to write about us. And she said, Joe, you're dying. And he said, Renee, dying is no excuse. And so the name of the play is Dying is No Excuse. And Renee Taylor sits in the middle of the play telling her story, her love story about her relationship with Joe Bologna. And around her are all the characters of her life.
Oh, my gosh.
There are 7 actors surrounding her. And the great Elaine May is coming to direct the piece. So how does Matt Penn fit in? Elaine May called Matt Penn and said, Renee wants me to direct this piece. We want to do this world premiere, but I'm not doing it anywhere else but Berkshire Theater. And so Matt Penn called and said, Elaine May. I was like, the Elaine May? She'd like to direct. And it was just too irresistible to pass up. I mean, even before I read the script, I thought, oh, we're going to have Elaine May and Renee Taylor running around Stockbridge. So, right?
Hide the keys to the car.
Exactly. So we did a reading of the piece in December in New York. We brought in a bunch of wonderful actors, and it was funny. I laughed. I cried. I did everything I was supposed to, and I walked out of that room and thought, yeah, we're going to do this piece.
Wow.
And I leave here and I have a conversation about the production with Elaine May. I am having the most wonderful, I can't even begin to tell you how exciting and fun it is to talk to Elaine May. So Dying is No Excuse, very funny and moving, and a piece just about love and being in love.
And what a great time to focus on love.
Right? I mean, it's wonderful. And Renee Taylor, I sat at that reading and thought, comic genius.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary to be sitting in a room with that kind of talent.
Which, as a shrink, I believe is the basic characteristic that makes a good relationship, is having a great sense of humor.
We realized that during the course of the play. Following that, we're doing a wonderful play that was nominated for a Tony Award. The director won a Tony Award, Metamorphosis, by Mary Zimmerman. Metamorphosis was on Broadway about 20 years ago.
I'm going to interrupt you to tell people something. Last year, and I recommend that you do it every year, at the beginning of the season, like right now, you're listening to Kate, and this is going to be a buffo, exciting season. I contributed amount of money that I could redeem in tickets. How in the world does that help the theater? Well, it does because they have all the money in advance. So all the ticket sales, and it's not just for me. To one play, I took one very good friend. To another play, I took 3 girlfriends. So this is it's a great thing to do, and I'm going to do it today before you leave.
Thank you very much.
And it gets people started. And so everybody do that. It's a marvelous way. And you don't lose by it because you see fabulous plays.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell us more about
Metamorphosis. We start with The Elephant Man. We move on to Out of Character. We move on to Renee Taylor in Dying is No Excuse. And finally, we wind up with The Gods. Because we should.
Absolutely.
And Metamorphosis is one great tale after another. We begin with Midas.
Oh!
And we travel through all those great myths of the gods.
This is fabulous.
On the unicorn stage. With water, no less. I think it's going to be an amazing piece to come and see. Visually, it will be amazing. We have a young group of artists coming, a couple of the elders to represent the elder gods. But it will be a piece with movement. And I think it would be good to remind ourselves of what the gods warned us about these days.
You must attend every single one of these plays. You will thank both of us. If you see us at the theater, say hi and thank you, because we're encouraging you. It's going to make for a wonderful summer. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the time. I had fun with you, Carol, as always.
Good. I have fun with you, too.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you.